Okay, so we have the basic workflow down, simple enough. Make a file, save it, open it in the browser. Now let's talk about what goes in the files. HTML basically consists of a bunch of elements that we can pick from and add into our documents. So we have different elements to make a link or a heading or a paragraph or bold text, images, buttons, form controls. All these different things are created using different elements that all the browsers recognize. So the element that we made, or at least that I made, is called the H1, and it is a heading. We're going to talk more about headings in a bit, but that is one example of an element. The next one that we're going to learn is called the paragraph. So the paragraph is used to designate a paragraph of text. That's pretty much it. It's very simple, and it will add a little spacing around our text so that it looks like a paragraph. If I have in this document a bunch of text, which by the way, it's really annoying to type just placeholder text. So if you've heard of lorem ipsum, you can use VS Code to generate that for us. If I type lorem and then I hit tab, it creates a paragraph of lorem ipsum placeholder text, just a bunch of Latin that we can use as placeholder. So let's make a couple of these. And let's say that I want there to be a paragraph right here. So if I hit enter and I save, it looks like I've made a paragraph. If I go back to my browser and refresh, I actually haven't. I have just a bunch of text, but there's no break. There's supposed to be a break right here. So if I put a bunch of white space in there and refresh, it doesn't matter. The browser doesn't respect that white space. We have to use something like a paragraph element to tell the browser, wait a second, this is a standalone paragraph and this is a standalone paragraph. And the syntax looks like this. We wrap our text with what we call an opening paragraph tag and a closing paragraph tag. So the way that we write this is the same as the H1, where we use the angle brackets, but instead of H1, we're going to put the letter P in there. And that tells the browser this is a paragraph. So as I start to type it, you can see VS Code starts to autocomplete it for me. This is the closing version. So it's exactly the same, except there's a forward slash before the letter P. And this is a pattern we're going to see again and again and again when we learn about things like, let's say, the div element. It's the same pattern. Forward slash div will close the tag. When we talk about, EM elements, EM opens, slash EM closes. So that's all over the place in HTML. So if this is a paragraph, I'm also going to make this a paragraph. I don't need all this white space because as we saw, the browser doesn't care about it. And I'm going to wrap this in the letter P, opening tag, and closing tag, and then save. And you can see VS Code does some auto formatting for me. It's just trying to make my code easier to read. That's not going to change how it's rendered in the browser. But these will, opening and closing P tags. I'm going to refresh the page. And there are our two beautiful paragraphs. If I zoom way in, you can see that there is space between them. And that's because I told the browser this is a paragraph and this is a separate paragraph. So even if it's just a single word, like hello, inside of P tags, it will go on its own line, refresh the page, there it is. So that is treated as a full paragraph of text. The browser doesn't care how much is in there. It just treats it as its own element. So that's our first example. Well, we saw an H1, although we didn't really talk about what it is, but that's our first real element that we've learned, the paragraph element. It represents a paragraph of text. If we look at any web page, like this GitHub marketing page, this is likely a paragraph. It should be, because that's what it is, a paragraph of text. We're going to talk about the DevTools more in depth, but if I right-click on it and go to Inspect, it opens up a whole bunch of stuff. Try and get this side by side. There's a lot to look at here. Again, we're going to learn all about this, but notice right there when I hover, I'll zoom in post-production, P, it is a paragraph, and then text inside. I would imagine this is a paragraph of text. If I inspect it, it is. It says P right there. That's probably a paragraph. All these blocks of text could be a paragraph. Although, actually, I think these are block quotes because this is a quote, a text quote. We're going to learn about the block quote element as well. But anyway, there's lots of paragraph elements all over the place. They represent a single paragraph of text. And the most important takeaway from this video is the syntax of using the less than sign or the angle brackets where we put a tag name inside, like P, and then we put that around text, and then we close it off with the same tag, but prefixed with a /. And that's how the browser knows this is the beginning of the paragraph, and this is the end. If I'm missing one of those, right, and I only have the beginning tags, and I refresh, the browser can sometimes figure out what I want, but sometimes it won't figure it out. For example, if I'm missing the opening tag here, and I refresh, well, now it thinks this is all one paragraph because it sees the opening one, and then it doesn't see a closing tag until here, so it treats all of this as a single paragraph of text. Instead, I want two separate paragraphs. So the opening and closing tags, very, very important. And that's our first element.